There is a gap between mocking God and facing the consequences. But what if I told you that, in some cases, that gap simply never existed? In this video, you will see 9 documented cases involving celebrities, world leaders, and public figures who, at the height of their confidence, chose to mock God before millions of people. What happened immediately afterward left everyone stunned. Stay with me until the very end, because the last story will prove that no matter how powerful someone may seem, the day of reckoning always comes. Kathy Griffin. In the ruthless world of comedy, the line between humor and blasphemy is often crossed in the pursuit of attention. But comedian Kathy Griffin discovered the hard way that using the world stage to humiliate the creator can become the beginning of your own downfall. After years of fighting for recognition in Hollywood, Griffin finally reached the top when she won a Primetime Emmy Award in 2007. It should have been a moment of gratitude. But human pride, once intoxicated by success, often feels an unhealthy need to elevate itself by diminishing the divine. Standing on stage with the golden statuette in her hands, before an audience of celebrities and cameras broadcasting around the world, she chose open mockery. With a sarcastic smile, she declared, "Many people come up here and thank Jesus. I want you to know that nobody had less to do with this than Jesus. So suck it, Jesus. This award is my God now." Those words echoed like a thunderclap of contempt. She had literally raised a piece of metal to the status of a deity and used the greatest moment of her career to publicly attack the Son of God. But what happens when you replace the Creator with a trophy? For many people watching, the answer seemed to come through a devastating collapse. In the years that followed, the woman who placed fame above God watched her public image crumble. After a series of highly controversial incidents, Griffin endured one of the harshest public backlashes in modern entertainment. She lost television opportunities, major contracts disappeared, and she even became the subject of a federal investigation.
I don't know if I'm gonna get arrested today. I don't know.
What do you
but I have to stand up.
you?
Friends and colleagues in the industry turned their backs on her almost overnight. But the isolation was only the beginning. It was followed by struggles with addiction, deep depression, and eventually a diagnosis of lung cancer that threatened to take away the very tool that had built her career, her voice. The Emmy statuette, her new god, offered no comfort during the storm. Metal could not heal her body or bring peace to her mind. For many, Kathy Griffin's story stands as a sobering warning. You may use the world's microphone to mock heaven, but when the lights go out, false gods always leave you alone in the darkness. John Lennon. Fame can be such a powerful drug that it convinces a man he is a god. But history has a relentless way of reminding people that no one stands above the sacred without eventually confronting their own limits. The year was 1966. The Beatles were no longer just a band. They had become a global phenomenon that inspired almost religious devotion. At the height of that extraordinary fame, John Lennon crossed a line that shocked the world. During an interview, he famously said, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. We're more popular than Jesus now." Lennon was not simply expressing an opinion. To many people, it sounded like a verdict. The Sea of Galilee, the Lake of Miracles. Although it is called a sea, the Sea of Galilee is actually a large freshwater lake surrounded by rolling green hills. It is impossible to stand there without recalling the stories that unfolded along its shores. It was on this lake that Jesus called Peter, Andrew, James, and John, telling them that he would make them fishers of men. It was there that he calmed a raging storm with nothing more than his voice. The band's tour became an unbearable ordeal, forcing Lennon to issue a public apology while visibly shaken and under enormous pressure. Peace seemed to leave him, and before long, the Beatles would never be the same again. Not long afterward, they stopped touring altogether. But for many, the final chapter of the story was yet to come. Lennon spent much of the following years living with increasing isolation and paranoia until December 8th, 1980, when tragedy struck outside his apartment building in New York City. The man who had once claimed to be more popular than Christ was shot and killed. Perhaps the most chilling detail was that the gunman was an obsessed fan, someone who had been deeply affected by the very words Lennon had spoken 14 years earlier. John Lennon's glory faded on the cold pavement. The Beatles came to an end. Yet the Christ whom he predicted would disappear continues to be worshipped by billions around the world. For many people, Lennon's story became a reminder that anyone who tries to share the stage with God ultimately discovers the limits of human greatness. Before we continue, Take a moment to hit the like button below if you also believe that no one stands above divine justice. It helps this warning reach more people. Marilyn Monroe. During Hollywood's golden age, few names shined brighter than hers. She was not simply an actress. She became the ultimate symbol of beauty, desire, and glamour. The entire world seemed to lie at her feet, but behind the diamond-studded dresses was a tormented soul, drowning in an emptiness that fame and spotlights could never fill. It was in this strange combination of outward glory and hidden pain that one of the most remarkable encounters in entertainment history is said to have taken place. The famous evangelist Billy Graham felt an undeniable spiritual calling. According to accounts from that time, he believed he was being led to seek out Marilyn Monroe and offer her the one kind of peace that Hollywood could never buy. Graham arranged the meeting. He spoke to her directly and sincerely about the love of Christ, urging her to place her burdens in God's hands. At that moment, the most famous woman in the world was being offered what many would consider a chance to exchange the darkness of depression for the light of eternal hope. But the pride that often accompanies fame spoke louder. She rejected what Graham believed was the only salvation that truly mattered. Looking at the preacher with cold indifference, she reportedly replied, "I don't need your Jesus." It was not a polite refusal. It was a complete rejection of grace. Marilyn believed that her own gods, fame and beauty, were enough. The tragedy is that glamour cannot save anyone from the abyss. And for many people, the consequences of that decision seemed terrifying. Not long after she rejected the Savior with such contempt, the world was shocked. On August 5th, 1962, Hollywood's untouchable goddess was found dead, alone in her bedroom, the victim of a drug overdose. The woman who had presidents at her feet died in the deepest loneliness imaginable. When the curtain finally fell and the applause faded away, the Jesus she had rejected was, in the eyes of many believers, the only one who could truly have been there for her. Marilyn Monroe's story is often seen as a reminder that no matter how high the world may lift you, the fall that follows spiritual pride can be devastating. Thomas Andrews. If the arrogance of entertainers can be dangerous, the pride of human engineering can be even more frightening. At the beginning of the 20th century, humanity was experiencing an unprecedented age of technological optimism. Many believed that, through intellect and steel, mankind had finally conquered nature itself. The ultimate symbol of that confidence had a name that would echo throughout history: RMS Titanic. At the center of this extraordinary achievement stood the ship's naval architect, Thomas Andrews. He had helped create what the world called the crown jewel of modern engineering, a vessel so luxurious and advanced that it seemed to defy the very laws of the sea. The Titanic was not merely a means of transportation. It was seen as a declaration that human ingenuity had overcome the forces of nature. The atmosphere of confidence surrounding the ship became so overwhelming that it gave birth to one of the most famous sayings ever associated with the disaster: "Not even God could sink this ship." As the world's elite boarded the vessel, that sentiment spread through newspapers and popular conversation. People were so convinced of the Titanic's invincibility that it sailed with enough lifeboats for only about half of those on board. After all, why prepare for disaster if your creation was believed to be unsinkable? But the answer to such overwhelming confidence came swiftly. On the freezing night of April 14th, 1912, the greatest machine mankind had ever built met its final test in the form of a silent iceberg. The magnificent structure that many believed could never sink was torn open as if it were paper. In less than 3 hours, the greatest symbol of human pride became a nightmare of panic and death. Thomas Andrews spent his final moments in profound shock. According to eyewitness accounts, he was last seen standing motionless in the first-class smoking room, staring into the distance, his life jacket lying untouched on a nearby table. In those final minutes, Andrews discovered in the most terrifying way imaginable that all his science, all his calculations, and all his tons of steel were powerless against the force of the sea. He went down with the very ship he had helped create. For many people, the tragedy of the Titanic became a modern-day Tower of Babel, brought down in its first attempt to reach the heavens. The ship that people claimed not even God could sink now rests broken in two, deep beneath the darkness of the Atlantic Ocean. It stands as an eternal reminder that no work built by human hands will ever be greater than the power of the one who created the seas. Christian Bale. If television has had its moments of blasphemy, The world of cinema has certainly had its own. There is a dangerous belief among some stars that artistic genius somehow places them above all moral boundaries. Christian Bale, one of the most respected and celebrated actors of his generation, built his career on intense and unforgettable performances. But that same intensity eventually led him into controversial territory. One of the most debated moments came in 2014 when he portrayed Moses in the biblical epic Exodus, Gods and Kings. During the film's promotional tour, Bale made comments about this sacred figure that sparked strong reactions among both Christians and Jews. Speaking to reporters from around the world, he suggested that Moses was probably schizophrenic and one of the most barbaric individuals he had ever read about. And he did not stop there. He went on to speak about the biblical account of divine revelation with a tone that many believers considered openly sarcastic. But the most controversial moment came at the 2019 Golden Globe Awards. After winning the award for Best Actor, Bale walked onto the stage to the applause of Hollywood's elite. Holding the trophy in his hands and wearing a cynical smile, he delivered a line that immediately drew worldwide attention. "Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role." The remark created an instant wave of controversy. While some celebrities laughed nervously, even the Church of Satan publicly acknowledged the comment. To many people, Bale had used the highest stage in the entertainment world to credit the enemy of God for his success. But according to those who see a deeper meaning in these events, the consequences of that long history of controversial remarks did not take long to arrive. His next major project, Amsterdam, became one of the biggest box office big disappointments in recent years, reportedly losing more than $100 million. For an actor who had seemed untouchable, the global failure was a crushing blow. Yet many would argue that the greatest burden was not professional, but physical. The man who had mocked biblical prophets and publicly thanked the devil eventually found himself confronted by the fragility of his own body. After years of putting himself through extreme physical transformations for movie roles, Bale admitted in interviews that he had developed a genuine fear of dying suddenly. He confessed that his own mortality was staring him in the face. Eventually, he stepped back from those dangerous practices and even apologized to his family for the fear he had caused them. In the end, that dark inspiration could not protect his body, proving that even Hollywood's greatest stars are still only human. Charlie Sheen. If movie stars sometimes flirt with the abyss, television gave us one of the most astonishing public displays of delusions of grandeur ever witnessed. What happens when money seems limitless and fame erases every trace of fear from a man's heart? Charlie Sheen lived through a period when he literally had the world at his feet. As the highest paid actor on television, he possessed wealth, influence, and worldwide recognition. But behind that success was an emptiness that would eventually turn into open defiance toward the sacred. The controversy began in 2006. During a special episode connected to his hit television series, Sheen participated in a parody of the beloved Christmas hymn, Joy to the World, replacing its message about the birth of Christ with suggestive jokes before millions of viewers. But that was only the beginning. By 2011, Sheen's behavior had reached an even more bizarre and disturbing level. Consumed by his own ego, he began comparing himself to an unstoppable supernatural force. In front of television cameras, he famously declared that he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA. He portrayed himself as an invincible being. At one point, he even referred to himself as a Vatican assassin warlock, describing himself as a warrior of the shadows who somehow operated beyond ordinary human limits. To many observers, Charlie Sheen appeared to be destroying every bridge back to reality. He acted as though he were untouchable while his personal collapse unfolded live before the entire world. And then came the fall. Shortly after these public episodes, he was abruptly fired from his enormously successful television show, losing one of the most valuable contracts in the entertainment industry and tens of millions of dollars. His personal life also unraveled. Following a series of disturbing incidents and threats, he lost custody rights involving his children. But an even darker reality remained hidden. Years later, Sheen revealed that during the very period when he was publicly claiming to have tiger blood and presenting himself as nearly invincible, he had already been secretly living with an HIV diagnosis. The man who seemed to mock human limitations and project an image of immortality reportedly spent more than $10 million trying to silence people who attempted to blackmail him over his condition. His fortune, once estimated at around $150 million, largely disappeared. Today, only a fraction of that empire remains. For many people, his story serves as a reminder that when arrogance tries to take the place of the Creator, the result is often public humiliation and the exposure of humanity's deepest fragility. Brian David Mitchell. The story of Brian David Mitchell may be one of the most disturbing examples of how spiritual arrogance can take a terrifying form. Mitchell was not a famous actor or celebrity. He was an ordinary man who built a twisted fantasy in which he demanded to be treated as someone chosen by God. In 2002, he shocked the nation when he kidnapped 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart from her own bedroom. But what makes this case especially disturbing is the way he attempted to justify his crimes. Consumed by grandiose delusions, Mitchell wrote bizarre religious writings in which he proclaimed himself to be God's one true prophet on earth. In doing so, he committed what many consider the ultimate act of spiritual corruption. He used the name of the Creator to excuse his own evil. Mitchell claimed that he was receiving exclusive revelations from God that gave him the divine right to abuse the young girl. By doing so, he attempted to turn faith itself into a shield for his darkness. He believed he stood above human law. Wearing long robes and demanding respect from those around him, he walked the streets convinced that heaven itself would protect him from any punishment. He truly believed that his supposed divine status would guarantee his victory. Mount Nebo, Moses' final view. Imagine Moses in his old age. His feet are firmly planted upon the rock while the wind blows across the landscape, carrying the sense of earth and vegetation from the valley below. Leaning on his staff, he gazes toward the horizon. God tells him that from this place he will see the promised land, but he will not enter it. Mount Nebo, located in modern-day Jordan, rises more than 800 meters above sea level. The man who demanded to be treated like a god was sentenced to life in prison. Today, he has no pulpit, no followers, and no voice. He will spend the rest of his life inside a maximum security prison, largely forgotten by the world. To many, his downfall stands as a warning that anyone who uses the name of God to justify evil will ultimately be consumed by it. Saddam Hussein. One can still sense the devotion of a man who dedicated his life to a promise yet never crossed the final threshold. A profound feeling of reverence fills every visitor. After all, this is the very place where one of the Bible's greatest leaders saw, but never set foot in, the fulfillment of God. His obsession with greatness became so extreme that he ordered parts of the ancient city of Babylon to be rebuilt, placing his own name on the bricks alongside that of King Nebuchadnezzar II, the biblical ruler whose pride also became legendary. But Saddam's spiritual defiance went beyond monuments. He openly expressed hostility toward Israel, the nation that holds a central place in biblical prophecy, seemingly ignoring the ancient words found in Genesis. I will curse those who curse you. During the 1991 Gulf War, Saddam launched dozens of missiles toward Israeli cities. He mocked the warnings of the international community and delivered speeches as though his rule would last forever. But the scales of justice move in their own time. In 2003, the collapse of his empire came without honor or glory. The punishment seemed almost symbolic. The man who had terrorized millions and slept in luxury did not die heroically on a battlefield. Instead, Saddam Hussein was discovered hiding inside a filthy underground hole, a crude spider hole dug into the earth. The images shocked the world. The man who had once presented himself as untouchable emerged dirty, disheveled, and helpless, like a trapped animal. His humiliation reached its final chapter in 2006 when he was executed by hanging. Yet even then, pride appeared to blind him. With the noose already around his neck and eternity seemingly moments away, Saddam used his final words to shout curses instead of seeking forgiveness. Seconds later, the trapdoor opened. The man who had tried to rule like an immortal king ended his life hanging from an ordinary rope. For many, it became a reminder that the crowns of this world carry no weight before the court of heaven. Herod Agrippa I's human arrogance is not unique to the modern age. Today, Beth Sheen is one of the most impressive archaeological sites in Israel. Broad stone-paved streets, Roman columns still standing after centuries, and a massive theater capable of holding thousands of spectators have all been remarkably preserved. The city has been rebuilt several times throughout history, making a visit feel like turning the pages of multiple civilizations at once. Tel Dan, the rival altar, he treated the lives of God's servants as though he himself controlled destiny. But the greatest display of his pride took place in the city of Caesarea. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus records that during a public festival, Herod entered the amphitheater wearing a royal robe woven entirely from silver threads. As the morning sunlight struck the garment, it reflected brilliantly, making him appear almost supernatural. Seated upon his throne, he began to address the crowd. Seeking his favor, the people cried out, "It is the voice of a god and not of a man." At that moment, Herod faced a choice. He could have humbled himself and admitted that he was nothing more than dust. Instead, vanity consumed him. He smiled, accepted the worship, and embraced a glory that, according to Scripture, belongs to God alone. The biblical account describes what happened next with remarkable directness. At that very moment, because he did not give glory to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down. The man who had shone like silver and lived for applause was suddenly overcome by unbearable internal agony. Herod's death became one of the most humiliating stories of the ancient world. He did not die with dignity. According to the biblical account, he was eaten by worms. His body decayed from the inside out while he was still alive, consumed by parasites until he finally breathed his last. Megiddo, the setting of Armageddon. Few places carry as much prophetic significance as Megiddo. Mentioned in Revelation 16:16 as Armageddon, this ancient city has witnessed countless battles throughout history because of its strategic position overlooking the Jezreel Valley. Kings and generals understood that whoever controlled Megiddo controlled the most important trade route in the region. When a human being looks into the mirror and sees a god staring back, it is not a sign of strength. It is often a sign of the deepest and most frightening kind of weakness. Pretending to be God or trying to take the place of Jesus Christ is not merely a spiritual offense. It can also be seen as the symptom of an ego so inflated that it has completely lost touch with reality. If this video made you reflect on the seriousness of the spiritual life, be sure to leave a like. And tell us in the comments, which of these stories impacted you the most? Share this message with someone who may need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and always remember, God is love, but He is also a consuming fire.